Hello, everybody, and welcome to week 13 of the 2024 NFL season. This week, the Vikings are taking on the Cardinals, and I'm coming to you without an intro because while I was up in the Northwoods, my computer also decided to take a vacation, and for some reason now, I'm not going to get into it. It's acting up. It's acting real fussy. So let's get right into it. The Vikings are taking on the Cardinals, hosting the Cardinals after their road trip. They now have something of a homestand. And because they're playing some Redbirds from Arizona, this week I will be enjoying the Red Hawk cider from Maiden Rock Winery in Stockholm, Wisconsin. I was actually there years ago. It's a very nice place in a beautiful area. Highly recommend it if you're down in the Maiden Rock Pepin area. Red Hawk is produced on a bluff overlooking the Mississippi River. This cider defies conventional expectations. With an aroma that hints of spices, it dances on your palate in a medley of flavors. Ingredients: fermented apple juice, hibiscus flowers, natural spices, lightly carbonated, 6.8% ABV. I don't have my glass ready, but we're going to get through it. Skull, feel it there. Okay. I'm glad they called out the hibiscus in the ingredients because I don't know if I would have been able to put my finger on that. But it is a more complex cider than I'm used to, at least a cider without a gimmick. The spices are definitely what I would have picked up on first. Like I would guess cinnamon, but I don't know if it says which ones. But it tastes more. If you know me and know my love for ciders, you know that I also at times have been known to enjoy putting a fireball in a cider to make an apple pie of sorts. This doesn't need it. It is a very complex and spicy flavor, and I think it's got to be the hibiscus that gives it kind of that flavor that I have a hard time pinning down, which I have picked up on in other ciders or meads. Hibiscus seems to be a great thing to add if you want to add some complexity to your brew. Very delicious. On to today's game. This is an interesting matchup. The Cardinals have come on of late defensively and have been kind of chewing up opposing offenses. Their offense itself, it's getting the job done, but it really just kind of seems to be on their rookie or their sophomore tight end, Trey McBride, and then the rest kind of come along with him. Their rookie, Marvin Harrison Jr., who exploded early in the season, has been kind of quiet lately. And if you're not sure of that, just ask anybody who has him in fantasy. And so they've really been riding their defense, making life miserable for quarterbacks. They have, however, been conceding some pretty decent games to running backs. So this week might turn into an Aaron Jones game. And that brings up an interesting point. Last week, the Bears absolutely shut down Justin Jefferson for like 2 catches for 27 yards or something like that. But they gave up huge games, huge 100-plus yard games, career games to Hawkinson and Addison, and like a 100-plus yard game to Aaron Jones as well. So it'll be interesting to see, do the Cardinals try to mimic what the Bears did and keep Jefferson under control and hope that Hawkinson, Addison, and Jones can't do it again? Or do they maybe try to play coverage a little more evenly? And is the defensive front that they have, the pressure they've been putting on quarterbacks, enough to make it so that Sam Darnold can't complete passes to all of his weapons? It's an interesting matchup, especially following a week where a defense shut down our star player but let the rest of the offense run amok. What makes me kind of the most nervous, I guess, is the Vikings' star undrafted free agent linebacker Ivan Pace is on IR, and linebackers usually have a really big impact on how opposing tight ends play. But I think Harrison Smith at safety can also maybe keep the young tight end under control a little bit more. It's an interesting matchup. I'm excited to see it. I think the Vikings get it done at home. Interesting fact, they've never lost to the Cardinals at home. I think they're 7-0 all time against the Cardinals at home. So hopefully we keep that streak alive today. I don't want to overlook today's matchup, but I do want to take this chance to talk about the NFC North because we're getting down to it. After today, There are only 5 games left before the end of the season, and currently, the Vikings, Packers, and Lions are all playoff teams. And going into week 12, the NFC North was the first division since the merger and the realignment in 2002 when the NFC Central became the NFC North that a division had 3 teams with 8 or more wins. And now I think the NFC North is the first division since like 1985 or something, 1980 something, to have 3 teams with 9 wins or more. The Vikings' remaining schedule: we host the Falcons next week and our ex Kirk Cousins, then host the Bears, which should be a winnable game. I mean, we beat them once, and then they fired their coach. So, if anything, they should be more a shambles, right? Then we go to Seattle. We always go to Seattle, and that'll be an interesting game. The Seahawks looked really good early season, seem to be kind of struggling of late, but we'll see what happens. Host the Packers, which that could be a lot of fun, and then and visit the Lions. So the last 2 weeks of the season are very stressful. So if I'm going through the schedule here, the Falcons, man, I really thought they were going to be amazing this year. And they've shown flashes, but they've just been really inconsistent. I think the Vikings beat them at home. I think they beat the Bears at home. That Seahawks game could be really fun, but the Vikings are 9-2 right now. How do I not pick them to win? It's tough. It's tough. I'm gonna call that one a win, but with less confidence than the other two. Hosting the Packers, that's going to be a ton of fun. I wish that game, or I hope that game gets flexed to like primetime or something. That could be a ton of fun. Actually, no, I don't. The Vikings and primetime don't necessarily mesh. I don't know what I want. Coin flip, and I think they lose against the Lions, unless the Lions are resting starters. But if the Vikings keep winning, they're going to have to keep winning too. Very interesting. Meanwhile, the Packers this Thursday play the Lions, and that's going to be a game where the Vikings fans are going to be somehow rooting for both teams to lose. There's got to be some like arcane rule that says, if something happens, both teams just take a loss, not a forfeit. We don't want to draw. We want them both to lose somehow. That would be awesome. Then they go to the Seahawks, and I think that's going to be a fun matchup. I think both teams have lots of offensive firepower, and I think, if I'm correct, yes, that is the Sunday night game. So that's a great primetime matchup. They host the Saints. They should be able to win that game without too much of a problem. Packers and Vikings play, and then they host the Bears, who at that point should absolutely be rolling out their backups because their season's over. The Lions, meanwhile, have a somewhat challenging schedule. They take on the Packers on Thursday. Then they host the Bills. That should be a good matchup. They go to the Bears, and I don't want to look past anybody or downplay anybody. They are still professional NFL teams. I just don't see the Bears really getting it done. Then they go to visit the 49ers in a rematch of last year's NFC Championship game. The 49ers, man, I don't know what happened to them. They, despite kind of having most of their weapons back now, seem to be just a shell of their former selves, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And then they host the Vikings. So of the remaining 5 games for each of the Packers and the Lions and the Vikings, it consists of like games against all of each other. So I think, if I'm correct, like the Lions are 11-1, the Vikings are 9-2, the Packers are 10-2 because they already played on Thursday, and really the division is still fully up for grabs with 5 weeks to go and games against one another. So we're in the middle of it, and I haven't talked about how the fact that the Eagles are coming on real strong and are also, I think, like 9-2 now, or 10-2, no, 9-2. So it's a very fun playoff race. Hopefully the Vikings keep it up. I just saw Sam Darnold is currently the quarterback 8 in fantasy football scoring, which kind of surprised me because it feels like he's had some really down weeks, but he has actually been putting up lots of yards, and the Vikings offense is working. So hopefully they can keep working. All right, hopefully I will get the bugs ironed out and be able to put together an intro video for next week's game against the Falcons, when I will need to find another Redbird themed beverage. Until next week, thank you so much for watching. Skull feeleth air. And go Vikings.